Hi, and welcome back to the Ziggy Zone. Today, we're taking a break from football as it's Pro Bowl weekend, and I'm not too pleased with this new lineup. Instead of the Pro Bowl being in Hawaii, and I'm like, really? Pro Bowl not in Hawaii? What's Pro Bowl? They went with this new format where they're taking two Hall of Famers and they have to pick a team and then they go against each other. That's not too interesting to me, so I'm not really into that and want to talk about that. I will let you know that it is Team Carter versus Team Irvin. So, hey, that's what's going on in the Pro Bowl. We'll be back talking about football next week after the Super Bowl, where the New England Patriots will be taking on the Seattle Seahawks. This, my friends, will be an excellent Super Bowl and one that I'm actually very interested in discussing with you all. So, stay tuned. Coming up today, we're going to talk about a little basketball. And I have a special treat. As promised, I'm taking questions. So today, I have a few questions that you all wrote in. The first question that we'll answer is, what do I think about the Cavaliers? The questions came in last week, below 500. And do they have a championship spot? Well, the Cavaliers are actually 5 games above 500 right now, so they're at 25-20. And do I think they have a championship chance? Going back, I think that the Cleveland Cavaliers have changed their entire identity. They were once a young team that was full of life and definitely establishing themselves as an elite or as a good quality team. However, with LeBron's arriving back, much of that has changed. They had some trades going on, and so now instead of a young, vibrant team, the Cavaliers are more of an older team of veterans. I mean, most of the squad now, you have Miller, you have LeBron, you have Sean Marion, you have Kevin Love, you have J.R. Smith. I mean, you have a lot of great pieces. I just think that when LeBron decided to return to Cleveland, it changed the dynamics of the team and it changed the identity of the team. And so now they went from being young and vibrant to veterans and solid. So I'm not surprised they are where they are at this point. The Eastern Conference is just bad. So at this point, anyone has a chance. Coming out of the East, Atlanta is really making themselves or have positioned themselves to be at the top of the conference. But Cleveland, definitely, they have a lot of solid veterans on that team. And so they definitely have a shot in the playoffs. They just do. But once again, the East is really a toss-up because those teams have good players. But for some reason, those teams they're just not very good. I think the 8th place team has somewhere around 18 or 19 wins, whereas in the West, you have to have at least like 25 wins to even be 1 through 8. So you can see that disparity there once again. So that was the first question. Thank you for writing that in. I do appreciate you all and your questions. The second question that I want to respond to is actually about Carmelo Anthony. So the question simply states, what's with Carmelo? He's injured. He has some ailments going on. I know that there were talks of shutting him down for the remainder of the season. However, with All-Star quickly approaching, Carmelo was voted. I mean, he's always voted and always made All-Star. He is that good. But I think what they're doing, what Phil and those guys are doing up in New York, is letting Carmelo stay active on the roster so that he can then, represent the East and represent the New Knicks in All Stars, which is actually going to be in New York between Brooklyn and Madison Square. So I don't want to say Times Square, but wherever it is, it's in Manhattan. I'm sorry about that. So I think that for New York, they're stunt queens, so it makes sense why they'll keep Carmelo active because he's their all-star. You want him to be recognized and to be present for that. And then I do believe that after All-Stars, I think at this point they'll pretty much will shut Carmelo down. The Knicks, they've gone on a bit of a win streak. They're now at 8-37. I know some of you may think that, oh my gosh, they're 8. They had only won 5 games up until this recent win streak. So, I mean, to put together 3 solid wins in like a week and a half, you gotta sort of give them credit. They've earned it. The Knicks are done for the season. They're done. They're just done. I think that Phil Jackson is working on a plan. He has his coach, Derek Fisher is his coach, and Derek Fisher obviously didn't have an opportunity to excel with a roster, being that I honestly felt like the Knicks roster is an overpaid group of mediocrity. It's an overpaid group of mediocrity. And so there was no real wiggle room for money. And so Derek Fisher was really working with what he had. Phil Jackson is a wizard. He's a genius among geniuses. He recently offloaded J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert to make room. My best bet is that come the 2015-16 season, so next season, they'll be building around Carmelo. I've never noticed this about Carmelo, which is actually quite interesting because people say he's a ball hog. I've been watching him since he's been with Denver, and maybe I've never paid attention to that much of his game, but people say he's a ball hog and he doesn't play any defense. Which, if that's the case, I really hope he changes his mindset, because you can't win titles without defense. It's said best in Love and Basketball. Offense sells tickets and defense wins games. And when Sanaa was like this, and she was like, stand on the sideline, I don't ever want to see that again. So I really hope Carmelo understands that, and I'm really hoping that that's actually not 100% true. Needless to say, Amari Stoudemire, his contract is coming to an end. He's had a number of injuries and surgeries, and he's still a fairly young guy. I mean, you talk about being in your late 20s, early 30s. To say that your career probably is a wash. Amari Stoudemire had great years in Phoenix, but I don't ever feel like he reached his full potential in New York, even under Mike D'Antoni, who was his coach in Phoenix. So I know for a fact that Phil is offloading him. I know that Phil is going to offload Bargnani and a few of those other guys, and really, with draft picks and with a couple trades, really see what he can build around Carmelo, because they gave Carmelo quite a few dollars to stay in New York. So, and we know that New York, they've gone to the playoffs, I think like 2 or 3 years ago, but they haven't won a title in a long time. But, when you're playing at Madison Square Gardens, do you actually need a title? If Spike Lee's your biggest fan, what are you really missing? People will come to a Knicks game, no matter how good or bad they are. But Phil's a winner. And so he's going to do everything he can to make sure that the Knicks, at least as far as the talent in the roster, is set up to do so, win. So that was a little long. I touched on the entire Knicks and not just Carmelo. But thank you so much for writing that question in. I do appreciate you. Thank you. And so the next question is talking about both Carmelo and Cleveland, and is, what do I think about 2 star players being on, subpar or poor performing teams? So you talk about Cleveland at the time of this question, like I said, which came in last week, and at that point, Cleveland was only at 500, and like I said, New York will never see 500 this season. Sorry, no shade, but it's the truth. But what do I think about, 2 star players who are stars in their own right being on poor performing teams? And I think I addressed a little bit of that before. So you talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers really coming in and changing the identity of their team, and they went from being a younger team to now an older team with veterans. And I think that LeBron is, he's getting his foot, planted. And I think in the second half of the season, he's really going to come back strong. And he's going to come back hard and really take over leadership. I know he and Kyrie sort of have to discuss these things, but at the end of the day, Uh, you don't Cleveland Cavaliers, it's LeBron's team, even if he left for Miami for 4 years. So that, I think that's what will happen. I think that Cleveland will be fine. I think LeBron will be fine. He'll get his numbers. He'll get his recognition. So it's not a big deal, with the Cavs. I don't foresee LeBron leaving again in the future. If he does, I just don't think that will look good for him, because then people will say, oh, well, you're supposed to be one of the greatest players right now, and yet you can't bring a championship to this city. And you have to leave and do that other places. So I think that for LeBron's legacy and for his career, he almost will have to finish out the next, I guess, he probably might play another 8 years. I think he just made 30, or he just made 29. But the next 5-6 years, depending on how long his body goes and how much how much longer he wants to play. But whatever it is, I think he almost has to finish out his career in Cleveland. And I almost feel like he has to bring a championship to Cleveland. The West is deep. I find it very difficult for the West to win. I mean, the East to win against the West. So will that happen? I don't know. But he can't keep flip-flopping and dilly-dallying like he did, because I think people will really start to give him the side eye and question his greatness. He is a really good basketball player. He's a great athlete, but he has to put in the work for Cleveland, and if it's not done, I think people will really question that. You talk about someone like Reggie Miller, who stayed with Indiana his entire life. You talk about 18 years, no ring. It was unfortunate for Reggie because he always had to go up against Michael Jordan. And so that's why Reggie was never able to get a ring, but you've seen his loyalty and dedication, because Reggie felt that every year the Indiana Pacers could win the championship. It's every year. Even though they fell short all the time, every year, he still had the same mentality. And I think that LeBron doesn't really have that, being that he left. But he needs to get that. He needs to tap into that loyalty of every year we can do it. And even if you don't, come back next year, we can do it. So there's talks of, with the coach, Blatt, I think is his name. I think all that's fine. Everyone likes drama. The media likes drama. I don't see that as being too much of an issue this year, maybe next year. If the Cleveland is underperforming, maybe some coaching changes after that. But once again, who can really coach LeBron? Spoelstra was able to coach LeBron and get him 2 rings, but was it Spoelstra or was it Riley? That's all I'm saying. Spoelstra was on the sideline, but you know how Pat Riley do. And then going back to Carmelo being on a suffering team with the Knicks, they're planning to retool. I don't worry about Carmelo. Carmelo looks a little out of shape to me. But once again, he's also dealing with an injury. So we'll see. Really, to tell about the summer, if they shut him down, it's really nothing to worry about with Carmelo. It will be interesting to see how well the Knicks do once they shut him down after All-Star Weekend, because I think that's inevitable. And to see sort of what trades the Knicks partake in before the trade deadline. So, being on a subpar team, I think that Carmelo, this is the worst ever. I mean, I think he went to the playoffs every year with the Nuggets, or really fought hard, for like a 9th or 10th spot. Once again, the West is usually deep. So, the 1 through 8, it's a dogfight just to get 1 through 8. So, I mean, his career in Denver was solid. Always making the playoffs or barely missing the playoffs. Where you talk about this year, which is he's grossly missing the mark. Not he, but the Knicks. So I'm quite sure that's sticking with him. But he probably didn't really know where to go either. I mean, they said the Bulls, but, you know, that maybe that wasn't a good fit. Obviously, he decided to stay with New York. They talked about LA. No shade. I just don't think nobody want to work with Kobe. Sorry, Kobe. He's good. He's great. He's shut down too for the rest of the season. So we don't know. We don't know. But I think both LeBron and Carmelo will be okay in the long term. Definitely next season, I do see both teams being strong playoff contenders, So the Knicks are out of it. The Knicks will definitely be in it next year. And Cleveland will definitely go in next year and have a stronger presence from the beginning. They'll end strong this year. However, next year they'll start strong too. So, once again, this has been the Ziggy Zone. Thank you so much to everyone who wrote in and sent us your questions. I hope that we were able to answer them. And be sure to send us your questions. We will answer them. Don't think that we're not. You send us a question, we'll answer it. All right? Thank you.